All right, so Alfa Romeo has unveiled their first EV, and it's called the Alfa Romeo Milano. And we're gonna have a look at this design because I don't think that this is a pure Italian, emotional, organic Alfa Romeo design. This looks way too complex, both with the graphics, and then we have heavy graphics in the front, heavy graphics in the rear, with a very simplistic side view. It just doesn't make sense to me from an Alfa Romeo design standpoint. But we're gonna have a look at this design in Photoshop in a minute from front, side, and rear, the interior, and compare it to some more not old, but classic Alfa Romeo design. I'm going to try to make my point that way. Before we do that, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver. Let's see what this is all about. So, the subcompact crossover will also be offered with a 3-cylinder hybrid powertrain, but sadly, neither version will be sold in the United States. And I'm pretty cool with that. I'm not too mad about that. So, 2 single motors, front-wheel drive electric powertrain will be offered with either 154 horsepower or 237 horsepower. And you definitely want to go with a more powerful 154 today in a brand new car, specifically an EV or hybrid. They're going to be very heavy, so this is probably going to be a super slow car if you have 154 horsepower. I would definitely bump it up to the 237 version. So the Milano is also being sold with 134, so even less power, turbocharged 3-cylinder hybrid powertrain that will come with front or all-wheel drive. And if you're going with that, is a very weak sounding engine, but I would still go with the all-wheel drive version for that one. Alfa Romeo aims to exclusively sell electric vehicles starting in 2027. We're gonna see about that. We've heard that from so many companies before, that by 2025 or 2030 we're gonna go all EV, but it feels like brands are starting to realize that that's not gonna happen, and they're starting to introduce more internal combustion engines in addition to hybrids as well. I think Toyota's approach is the best one, to focus more on hybrids. That's at least what I want to see more companies do. There are reports of a 1,000 horsepower successor to the Giulia Quadrifoglio, which, if you have 1,000 horsepower in EV terms, it feels like it's almost the standard these days. If you're going to have a performance EV, it's about 1,000 horsepower, but it's still not exciting. And that is still a big problem that car companies need to work on if they're going to push performance EVs. How do they make it stand out from the feeling that you get from every single EV? They all feel the same way. So related to this one is related to two other Euro market crossover. You have the Jeep Avenger and the Fiat 600e, but it is undoubtedly the most stylish of the trio. I don't agree with that either. I do think the Jeep Avenger looks great, and also the Fiat 600e looks like a blown up 500 basically. It's not the most beautiful design, but it still has a pretty funky design. The brand's serpent and cross logo overlaid on a mesh pattern in the front end. So you can get this with 2 different grille designs. So this triangle that I have in the front end, which is typical Alfa Romeo, you can have it in like a cutout with the logo, or you can have the letters on top of this mesh. And I kind of like the letters on the mesh. It looks very almost 20s or 30s coming back in a modern car. It's a very classic look that I like in this design. The interior, to me, looks fine. There is nothing wrong with this interior. It's a very clean interior, and also they made it special for the Alfa Romeo compared to the other Avenger and the 600e by also making it a proper Alfa Romeo interior with some specific design cues. You have a 10-inch gauge cluster and a 10-inch touchscreen for the infotainment screen. 54 kilowatt-hour battery is offered with either, as I said, 154 or 237 horsepower, with about 250 miles of range. This is a perfect car if you want to just drive around the city. If you're in Milan, for example, you just want to, dart around the small, narrow streets there. I think this will be a great car for that type of driving. And here you can see the new grille with the old Alfa Romeo font on top of this mesh. It looks pretty cool, I have to admit that. It looks nice and classic. Only one hybrid powertrain is available, and that is a turbocharged 1.2-liter 3-cylinder paired with a 28 horsepower electric motor integrated into the 6-speed dual clutch gearbox, and this is the one with 134 horsepower. Very hard choice here which one I would go for, because I would rather have the hybrid, but I don't want to have just 134 horsepower in this car. It feels a little too weak for me. The Veloce also includes 15-inch front brakes, disc brakes clamped by 4 piston calipers behind the 20-inch wheels. And 20-inch wheels on a small, this is a very, very small car. So 20-inch wheels on this car is going to look great, and it's at least going to plant the car properly. So let's jump into Photoshop here and let's talk about this Alfa Romeo design. And the reason why I'm not a huge fan of this car, if it was any other brand than Alfa Romeo, it would be a nice looking car, but this is an Alfa. It's the essence of Italian, soft, organic, with a couple of sharp lines in the design. And this, I never thought I would call an Alfa Romeo vulgar in the front, but this just looks way too busy. We have this line, cut line at the top. Everything starts fine. From the hood down to this point is great. It looks Alfa Romeo because we have these lines that then connects to the grille in the front end, looking pretty nice. But then we have these headlights. And what's going on here? First of all, they're very big, which I don't really mind. But the internal pieces here, we have 3 separate LEDs at the top, another 3 separated LEDs down here, another LED here, and then we have this intake here. So it's a lot going on in this specific area of the car, which I'm not, again, I think this does not suit Alfa to have it like this. And I wanted to throw in the Tonale here just to show you as a reference what I think Alfa Romeo is in an SUV form. Just have a look at how much cleaner the Tonale is in its shape. Simple graphics, 3 LEDs, that's it for the Tonale. This is the concept that I'm showing you here, but the production looks very, very similar to this. We have nice chamfers at the bottom here going around the key features. And look at these surfacing here. This reflection, for example, going out from the grille into the lower part underneath the headlight, have this beautiful motion to it, while in the new Milano, it feels way too complex. We also have this line cutting in, and another line then in a different angle, cutting in a different way to create this base for the lower section of the grille. In my opinion, the front end, this is what I want to see from Alfa Romeo. This is way, way too busy for me. And the same goes for the side view, even though the surfacing in the body of the car here, the Milano, is pretty decent, because we have this line at the bottom that has sort of a connection because it connects to a black bumper in the rear. So not part of the surfacing of the metal work of the car, but this area up here having a black roof like this, and the door handle being just positioned right here, and then this cut for the roof line. You have this corner that you see very abrupt in this area. These are details that maybe suit other brands, but to me it just does not suit Alfa Romeo, even though the body panel work and the metal work on the side view looks pretty nice. We also have a very sharp corner up here that does not feel Alfa Romeo. Again, these I do believe are the 20-inch wheels, and I kind of like the wheel design because they still have, there's sort of a an evolution from these round wheels that were Swiss cheese wheels that we have on a lot of Alfa Romeos these days. This looks pretty modern to me, like a modern interpretation of those wheels. I would like to have maybe 5-spoke design here instead of 4-spoke, but that's just a detail. And looking at the surfacing here of the Tonale and the differences here, just how much smoother the Tonale is in its design. We have this beautiful line that goes from the corner of the headlight and then slowly dips down into the corner of the taillight here as well. In addition to a much simpler C-pillar in this case. This curvatures here, this is Alfa Romeo to me. A simple design with a lot of organic fluid motions in the surfacing of the car. Looking fantastic. We also have this line at the bottom. Now looking at the rear end, and this is also, again, the complexity of the front end comes back in the complexity for the rear end design. I'm not sure what happened here with this black graphics. It dips and then abruptly cuts and ends in the bottom here. This is, I would much rather have this be cut out like this and have a smooth integration into the bodywork to have some sort of curvature in the end point instead of having this here dripping down, and it doesn't have any purpose to me for the overall design. But I do think the rear end looks better than the front end if we just remove this. I might do a redesign of this just to show you what I want to see for the Milano. We have a proper black bumper in the bottom as well. It doesn't seem to have a clear connection to the rest of the body here. This treatment though is very beautifully done. This is soft and smooth, organic, emotional, like we're used to seeing from Alfa Romeo, and also you can see that in the Tonale here as well. One single line that is sharp in the rear end. We have a nice diffuser that feels a lot better integrated than this piece that we have on the Milano in the new EV. And I kind of like the graphics here, the internal pieces, the LEDs. This is simple enough that this could be part of Alfa Romeo's design language, but if you look at the front end, there are just too many LEDs going on in the front. Now, looking at the interior, I do like what Alfa Romeo is doing with their interiors, because they make these circles for the gauge cluster. It's a proper housing for it. It looks super clean, and it also has a resemblance to the other circles that we have on the exterior design, specifically the wheel design that we have on Alfa Romeos. They did the same thing with the Tonale right here, looking great, even though this integration of the infotainment screen, not the best integration I've seen, but we still have a lot of physical buttons down here, which I love, and you still have that in the Milano here as well. And we have a different integration. I do think this integration of the infotainment screen looks a little better than it does on the Tonale over here, because this has some more styling to it and also feels better overall integrated with the rest of the interior. So to sum it up, the Milano is not coming to the United States, and I really don't mind that, because as I said, I don't really feel like this is a proper Alfa Romeo from a design standpoint, but it's still cool that Alfa Romeo is trying to play around with a new design identity for their brand.